everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, The Real Story Behind Zero Trust, Identity, and Device Security. I'm Max Crampton-Thomas with Technology Advice, and I'll be your host for today's session. Workforce access isn't what it used to be. Users are logging in from different devices, networks, and environments, often shifting between trusted and untrusted contexts throughout the day. That's why identity alone is no longer enough. In this session, we'll look at how organizations can strengthen access security by combining identity with real-time device trust. We'll explore how authentication, endpoint posture, and access decisions come together to reduce risk without adding friction, and what that means for teams working to implement zero trust at scale. Before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping. Today's session is being recorded, and we'll send the on-demand recording after the event. If you have questions during the presentation, please submit them using the Q&A panel, and we'll address as many as we can during the Q&A portion at the end. Now, I'm pleased to introduce our speaker. Darren James is Senior Product Manager at SpecOps Software. With more than 25 years in enterprise IT and deep experience in cybersecurity, he brings extensive experience in identity and access management, Active Directory, and Entra ID. Darren's perspective is shaped by years of hands-on consulting across government, retail, and energy, where he has helped organizations strengthen their access foundations with practical, real-world guidance. Darren, thanks so much for joining us today, and I'll hand it over to you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Max. It's a pleasure to be here. So let's have a quick look at this deck. So as Max said, we're going to be talking about the real story behind zero trust. So what does that kind of involve? So we've got a little agenda here. Many of us, we've invested heavily in zero trust frameworks. We've deployed systems. We've measured results, but we're still hearing about data breaches every day, aren't we? So how's this happening? So this is really what we're going to explore today, where those gaps are, why they exist, and what you can do to plug those holes in your zero trust deployments. So just as Max was saying, let's start by discussing how people work today. But really, if we're going to dig into that, kind of have to understand how we used to work. So if we think about how we worked maybe 15 years ago, we got up in the morning, we spent a couple of hours commuting to the office, we swiped in and waved at the security guard and sat down at our Windows desktop PC and went on about our day. Many of us didn't even have the luxury of a laptop, let alone a smartphone. And at the end of the day, we all went home and spent time with our families, the good old days. But let's look at today's workplace. In many ways, it's completely changed. So you might authenticate in the morning from a corporate laptop, 7 o'clock. And this could be at home. It could be on a train. It could be on a plane. Then at lunch, you might be using your personal smartphone to catch up on emails or review a quick presentation that you can be doing in the afternoon. And then in the evening, you might again be checking emails on your phone or maybe even using a family computer. If you have to make a quick edit, it's very hard to do on a mobile device, but maybe, my kid's computer, I can just log into work on that, make a quick edit via a browser, and I'm good to go in the morning. So, this is a completely different access story to what we faced 15 years ago. From an identity perspective, nothing changed. It was always you, no matter what device and where you were and what time of day you were using. But from a risk perspective, everything did. So all of those different devices, whether it was your personal phone, whether it was a bring your own device, whether it was maybe even a third party accessing your system, maybe it was, or you on your kid's computer, that risk perspective, depending on those devices, really did change everything. And many of our policies today assume stability, just like they did 15 years ago. But really, if we're honest with each other, modern day access is anything but stable. And many of us are using identity systems like Entra ID and Okta. And, they are really good at answering one good question. And that is, who is this? But they tend to be far less reliable answering what environment or device is this identity operating from? And should we trust it right now? Do we trust that device? Is it managed or unmanaged? Is it a corporate or personal device or owned by a third-party supplier? Are all of your endpoints treated equally? or are there exceptions to the rules that you might have in place? So, have you carved out a specific rule for maybe a bunch of DevOps guys that use Linux boxes because you can't really manage those properly with your MDM solution? But it's these gaps. That's where modern access risk lives. So we've got the first of our poll questions. I'm not going to dwell too much on it. So hopefully you'll answer these while I continue. But what's your biggest challenge with securing your workforce access today? We've got 4 answers. So my users, the internal and external, accessing systems from managed or personal devices, bring your own device type scenarios, limited visibility into device security and posture at login. Number 3, balancing stronger security with user experience. Or number 4, managing multiple solutions without a unified access strategy. Like I say, I won't dwell too much, waiting for you guys to answer now. But if you can have a look on the poll questions on the side, that'll be amazing. So most zero trust implementations carry an assumption that we don't often say out loud. If identity is strong enough, the device matters less. And that assumption worked when our devices were static, corporate owned and predictable. And you can see that nice shiny laptop on the screen in front of you right now on the left-hand side. But back in today's reality, it does really break down completely. So when you've got a world of bring your own devices or third-party contractors, suppliers, and remote workers, you really don't know where those users are on the planet or what device they're using and what the posture is of that device. Does it meet all of your standards? And so ultimately, identity is not enough. Many organizations have done the right thing. They've centralized identity and deployed MFA to their user accounts in most cases. But attackers don't need to break in anymore. They don't need to crack passwords. They just need to log in. And we see 3 dominant access bypass methods used today. One is MFA fatigue along with social engineering. So, MFA prompt spam the users and they eventually say yes. Or someone calls from the service desk and socially engineers the user into surrendering their code that they have to enter. So we see these headlines a lot. Another one that we don't see quite so, or don't hear about quite so much, but is absolutely gaining in popularity, is session or token hijacking after authentication. And we've seen a few examples of this really recently, where companies have had their global admins attacked, and remote wipes have been done to lots of computers. Those global admin accounts are protected by MFA. So how are they getting in? Well, sometimes this can be done by session token hijacking. So basically, after you've authenticated, someone captures your session token that's been generated. So you've done your password, you've done your MFA, you've done your passwordless, but you're typing that into a compromised browser or compromised device. Or it could be you're being phished and it's redirected through the bad guy's website. Well, at that point, they can capture your session token, and then they can just play that session token back from their machine. They don't need to MFA spam you or crack your password or anything like that. They literally just play the session back from their own device. And of course, access from compromised or unmanaged devices. It's kind of related to the second one as well, but we don't know what sort of info stealers our kids might have installed on their gaming PC that we may have used in the evening. They want to get good at Fortnite or whatever game they play. Then maybe they download a cheat from some dodgy website. But what they don't realize is that not only does it help them cheat Fortnite, but it also installs an info stealer on their computer. So all keystrokes are recorded. That session token theft can happen at will. So identity certainly answers who you are, but it does not answer what device this is and should we trust it. And that is a big gap that we want to close by binding your identity, so your you, to the devices that you use, and make sure those devices are trusted. And as we can see from the assorted headlines up there on the right-hand side, there are plenty of major companies with sophisticated cybersecurity stacks that continue to be caught out. And so why is this important now? Well, phishing kits are now industrialized, and AI is only making this type of attack vector easier. MFA fatigue is automated, authentication and cookies and tokens are stolen and replayed. There's no need to crack passwords. Attackers are aren't trying to defeat identity controls. They're just reusing them. So modern zero trust has to start from a kind of uncomfortable premise. Identity compromise is not an exception anymore. It should be expected. And, again, that stat on the left-hand side there just shows you how big session cookie theft is back in 2024. It's only going to get worse. So all this adds up to one question. If we haven't got the stability and security of a physical office and known devices that we had 15 years ago, where is the security perimeter now? If the user's identity can be compromised silently, what's left for us to do? Well, ultimately, it's the device. The device is now the security perimeter. Credentials and cookies and session tokens, they can be copied and stolen instantly. But stealing the device or compromising the device or cloning the device is a lot harder. And so when access is bound to a verified device, users lose that modern day advantage. You might then think to yourself, my MDM and EDR and SASE solutions can do most of that, right? Maybe they can for some devices, but probably not all. With MDM, you need to enroll all devices, but your users might not enroll or might not want to enroll their personal devices. Or they might use devices that aren't compatible. I was talking about those Linux guys earlier. Try and enroll those guys into Intune. There's no support. Or possibly they belong to a partner company and aren't even capable of enrolling a device into your MDM solution or your EDR solution. And also, even with an MDM, most device posture checks happen just at login or on a sync. But as we discussed at the beginning, user behavior is no longer stable. When they move from one network to another, the session may already be open. Vulnerabilities don't wait for your patch cycles. Malware can be downloaded at any time, and endpoint security can just be disabled to make things work. So trust really must be continuously reassessed, not assumed. And checks need to be consistent across any device at the point of access and then throughout that session. So I've talked a lot about devices so far, but let's not forget what other attack vector rose to prominence, certainly last year in my home country of the UK. The scattered spider group social engineering attacks on our poor help desks. So attackers, they don't just attack sign-in pages anymore. They also attack your recovery methods. And so that, be it password reset or account unlocks, all of these things that are done via our RT help desks. And our help desks also get asked by users for support with their devices, which themselves might be set up to capture credentials. So making sure that device being used has no vulnerabilities, such as disabled EDRs or disabled firewalls or disk encryption switched off, really is vitally important. And let's not forget those unpatched apps and OSs, especially on unmanaged devices. So again, think about your MDM. You have to enroll a device into MDM. If they're not enrolled, you've got no cover at all. So all of these things are, human-driven, urgency-based, and often bypass device trust entirely. So how can we check the device posture before access, reduce the burden on the help desk, and allow your users to solve those posture problems? Well, you really need to have a multi-layered system rather than just one individual control. So most access failures don't happen because one control was weak. They happen because one control failed, but nothing else was there to compensate. So passwords, yep, they become breached. MFA can be bypassed. Devices do and will drift out of compliance, and users will forget and lose their credentials and need help from the service desk. So if you can provide your access as a system, failure can be absorbed. And so it's all about layering your defenses and creating a system that can integrate and complement your current security stack, that will allow you to close these exceptions and gaps that exist in the modern day business practice, and what those business practices require us to support. So yeah, great. Deploy MFA, great. Have unbreached passwords, great. Have a patching system, but make sure it's properly layered and that they all support and integrate each other. And when you look at access as a system, 4 capabilities become non-negotiable. So firstly, attack-resistant credentials. These are credentials that are significantly harder to guess, spray, or reuse, typically things like long passphrases using banned word lists and breach password checks. And the goal here is to reduce the likelihood of an initial compromise. Then you have things like verified devices, just like I've been talking about for the past 10 minutes. So the ability to cryptographically verify what device is requesting access, not just whether it appears managed. And this binds access to a known trusted device and prevents stolen credentials from being reused from unknown endpoints. On top of that, continuous device posture enforcement. So this is the ongoing assessment of a device's security state. So that's OS health, controls over what applications are being used, and other risk signals. But not just at point of access, but after login as well. So access can be adapted, restricted, or revoked if that posture changes, rather than relying on a one-time compliance check. And then finally, secure, low-friction recovery. So strongly verified self-service systems, service desk recovery processes, so password resets, account unlocks, access changes, verification of the user that's calling in. And these really do eliminate social engineering attacks while keeping your users productive. So most organizations do maybe 1 or 2 of those pretty well, but very few do all 4 consistently. Another quick poll question. So how does your organization currently evaluate device trust during user access? So 1, we don't evaluate device trust. Access is based primarily on identity. 2, partial coverage. We can enforce checks on some devices, but maybe not others, e.g. Linux, Mac OS, bring your own device, supplier or contracted devices. 3, advanced posture checks against all devices that have access to company data, including things like OS health, security controls, and risk signals. Or 4, you're not sure. And that's fine. If you're not sure, that's fine. Maybe that's what you're here for today, to learn about these things. So how can we make device as the security perimeter a reality? There's essentially 3 core pillars that need to be in place. First, bind identities to devices. We bind the user to a specific approved device that no matter what that OS is or whether it's managed or unmanaged. So even if credentials or cookies or tokens are stolen, they just can't be replayed from the bad guy's device. Secondly, continuous device verification. So we can run hundreds of posture checks and security checks at login and then every 10 minutes throughout the login or throughout the logged in session. And this means mid-session, we can detect vulnerabilities, not just problems at logon time. And finally, and I'd argue maybe this is the most important, is rapid self-service remediation. So if a device does drift out of policy, the user is guided to fix it themselves, not just instantly blocked. So one-click actions like enabling disk encryption or updating a browser, We can support things like grace periods, meaning that cybersecurity doesn't have to stop users from doing their jobs. And of course, all of this doesn't require a help desk ticket. There's no waiting for IT. The business can continue generating, money for the company, which is what we're all ultimately here to do. And it's ultimately this user experience that will make or break the success of these solutions in your environment. And again, if you think about some of the clunky options that are available in your identity platform or in your MDM platform today, they're very much focused on blocking access. They don't give the user any option. So we need to really provide a solution that's intuitive to use, so that it doesn't come back to bite you, the CISO or the IT security people. We often see that those conditional access policies are weakened because there's been pushback from the business. It's got in the way. And they've been, built and designed with blocking access rather than the user experience in mind. So we absolutely help our users with that. And I'll show you a little bit about that in a demo later. So it's across these 3 points that our device trust solution really differentiates itself in practice. So access decisions are made on the current device state, not yesterday's device compliance snapshot. Users aren't simply blocked. They're empowered to fix the issues themselves. They're given grace periods. So work does not need to stop. It's BYOD friendly. So we verify the posture without taking over the device or invading a user's personal privacy. And also it's a lightweight SaaS service, and it's designed to sit in the access flow without slowing endpoints down or consuming batteries on phones, all of those sorts of things. So most organizations try to solve this with a combination of tools. As we said earlier, MDM is really good at configuration, but it's intrusive for BYOD and does not really drive real-time access decisions. Identity platforms are excellent at authentication, but very limited with device health visibility at the moment of access, and typically don't do continuous monitoring. Your EDR solution is critical for detection and response, but is not tied to access enforcement and is fundamentally reactive. So yes, you've got a virus, great, it does something about it. But how do we stop the virus from getting on there in the first place? So teams end up with all of these fragmented controls and essentially an incomplete access journey. And so our device trust solution doesn't replace these existing tools, but complements them by filling in those security gaps and reducing the support workload and ultimately improving the user experience. So let's have a quick look at a demo and how all of this stuff works. So as you can see here, I'm currently logged into an admin computer, but also an end user device. So we'll start with the end users. So I'm going to go to Microsoft 365, as many users do, and I'm going to log in with my Z user account, and my password's already in there for me, and I've been pushed to authenticate from my mobile app. And here is our InfiniPoint device trust solution. It's sending me a push notification. And by the way, this will work with Microsoft Authenticator. You don't have to use our authentication application. But we can see that there's a problem. So our posture of our device is being checked at logon, and we can see that there is a problem. Disable execution from USB drives has been detected. Now I can either fix it now, or I've been given a grace period. Now in this example, we've got 320 days. You typically wouldn't give them that long, but you can specify a number of days after an initial login or a specific date if you want to as well, or you can fix things in the background without the user even knowing. So I'm not going to fix that. I'm going to click fix later. So it's not going to stop me from delivering this amazing webinar to you guys today. And I'm into my Office platform. Fantastic. But what if my credentials have been stolen? What if that was a phishing attack and I was being sent via a proxy service. So now I've got a bad guy's device here. So another browser, and this time I'm the bad guy. So again, I'm going to go to portal.office.com. And again, I'm going to try and log in as Z user. And again, I've stolen that guy's password. And again, maybe I've sent or socially engineered them to click the approve button on their device. But there's a problem, because this user's account, their user identity, is not allowed to log in from this device. The maximum number of allowed devices is reached. Please contact your administrator. Well, if I'm a bad guy, I don't think I'm going to be ringing the administrator anytime soon. All right. So, but what's important is that access to your resources has been blocked. Yeah. So we've locked down Z users' credentials to only be used from this device, not from the bad guy's device. So yeah, that's essentially device pinning and device trust in action. Very simple workflow, no confusion for the user, completely up to them to fix issues. Well, up to you to allow them to fix issues either immediately or at their leisure. And again, it doesn't matter whether it's a corporate owned device or a personal device, or whether it's a MacBook, a Linux box, a Windows device, iOS or an Android. All of those systems are covered. As far as the admins are concerned, we've got a full dashboard where we can see all vulnerabilities. We can filter by platform. So whatever devices or whatever operating systems are running, we can filter by particular operating systems as well. So if it's Windows 10 or Windows Server or Mac OS, whatever's been detected in your environment. And all of this is policy driven. So if I go to computer posture over here and I click on policies and I click on baseline, we can see in here, I can see hundreds of rules in here that I can apply to my devices. And I can have particular rules applying to particular devices. So maybe I've just got contractors or bring your own devices I need to support. I can have a BYOD rule set, or I can have a corporate owned rule set. And here's the rule that we failed on earlier, execution from USB drives. And I can filter these again by platform, whether they're corporate or personal, and whether if I want to apply to a certain benchmark or certain regulatory, so PCI, there's 4 more in here, HIPAA, and so on and so forth. So these are all predefined for you to work with. And you can see whether they apply to Apple or Windows or Linux. Yeah, so it's very easy to navigate, even for the administrators as well. So how does this all kind of work together? So this is where the SpecOps solutions all come into play. So, and we can provide that layered system that I was talking about earlier. So first of all, at the start, SpecOps can strengthen credentials with our password policy solution and our secure access solution. Our device trust solution can authenticate that it is the user that's accessing our corporate resources from a trusted device. And then during the session, device trust can continuously check that device's health and enable us to enable users to fix issues themselves through guided one-click remediations. And then finally, during recovery, so SpecOps has a self-service password reset system called uReset and a secure service desk platform that allows your users, or your service desk, I should say, to authenticate your users whenever they call the service desk for whatever reason, whether it's a password reset, an MFA reset, using a whole multitude of identity services, including things like government issued IDs, so driving licenses, biometrics, all the way down to one-time codes via SMS if you still have to support those weaker methods as well. But we have a full spectrum of MFA support. And the result ultimately is you've got a closed continuous access journey from authentication to device trust to live session verification. to secure recovery with no blind spots in between. So SpecOps Device Trust really does enforce real zero trust at the access layer, at every access point and throughout the session. It authenticates the user, it verifies the device, and it continuously checks the device health. This means that phishing and stolen credentials are no longer enough to get in because the attacker's device is not trusted. And critically, this is done without disrupting the workforce. So zero trust is enforced, but productivity is preserved. And John Kindervag, the creator of Zero Trust, who's an advisor to the creators of this solution, has said himself, and this solution is real zero trust the way I had envisioned it, because it combines full identity authentication with zero device trust. So, last poll question. What level of follow-up would be helpful for you and members of your team? You know, would you like a technical walkthrough of a end-to-end access protection? Would you like a tailored review of our current identity and endpoint access risks? A live demo focused on device trust-based access decisions, or just the slides and a recording of this webinar for now? So I'm going to hand it back over to Max and see if we got some questions come through.
Thanks, Darren. Appreciate that. That was a really valuable look at why secure workforce access now depends on more than identity alone, and how device trust adds critical context to stronger zero trust decision-making. We'll now move into the Q&A portion of the session. As a reminder, you can submit your questions using the Q&A panel. But Darren, we did have a couple of questions come through, so let's go ahead and jump into those. For the first one, why do I need this solution if I already have conditional access in Entra and compliance policies in Intune?
I mean, we get that a lot. So this is, I think I talked about it during the presentation. So conditional access very much is part of Entra ID, and Intune is an MDM solution. So great. Brilliant. If you're a Microsoft centric environment and all of your devices are enrolled in Intune, and all of your users are affected by good conditional access rules, maybe you don't. But most of the time, that isn't the case, right? So there is, the CEO of the company, he doesn't want to use a Windows machine. He goes to the golf club with his MacBook, or and he wants his personal MacBook to be used for corporate access. Or there's a whole team of web developers over here that are using Linux boxes. Or we're not buying mobile phones for everyone in the organization. That costs us a fortune. We expect users to pick up their emails on their personal devices. So you end up carving out massive chunks into your security posture, and hoping that the bad guys don't figure it out. The bad news is, I know everybody does that. You guys know everybody does that. Guess what? The bad guys know everybody does that as well. So yeah, Entra, conditional access policies, Intune compliance policies, great. But what about the exceptions that you've carved out? Do they really enforce what you need to enforce to help you guys sleep better at night? Would be my question to you. If the answer is no, we live in a perfect, pristine environment, brilliant. I'm very happy for you. But most organizations don't have the luxury of that. There is a lot of nuance out there and a lot of business pushback when it comes to things like blocking. So yeah, if you are in a good situation like that, then I'm very pleased for you. But most people aren't.
So for our second question that came through, someone was wondering, can it support any cloud IAM platform?
That's a great question. So yes, so it's a complete SaaS solution. So I've talked a lot about Entra because I grew up with Active Directory and Microsoft in my blood anyway. So I often focus on that. But no, if you've got Okta, it's a perfect solution. If you've got Okta, if you're a Google Workspace, it's perfect for that. But we support basically any IAM solution that you've got out there. There are dedicated integrations as well as custom integrations as well. And so it doesn't, as I was saying earlier, this doesn't replace your IAM investment, your MDM investment, your zero trust network access investment. They are all still valid. They're very good at doing what they do. But this is the bit, SpecOps Device Trust is the piece that fills in the gaps between those environments, where all of those carve-outs and exceptions have been created, and where you've had to weaken your rules just to allow the business to continue. That's where we fit. So yes, any IAM, we're completely IAM agnostic and also device agnostic.
And that leads us to our next question. How does the bring your own device functionality work exactly, and is it agentless?
Ooh, that's another good question. We got some great questions today. So bring your own device. Wouldn't it be nice if everything was agentless? The problem that we've got with making something agentless is that the operating system manufacturers, so Apple and Google and Microsoft, are very good at nailing down what a browser can access on the operating system, restricting what it can access on the operating system. So typically, if you see an agentless solution out there, it's pretty limited in what it can report back to you about the posture of that device. So no, we're not agentless. We can't be agentless. If we tried to be agentless, we wouldn't be able to have a good solution for you. So if it is a BYOD device that your users are trying to use, that at login, they are prompted to install the agent. It says, would you like to install it? There's a nice privacy center so they can read all of the things that we can't do and can do. And you install the agent, and once it's installed, it's then invisible. They don't see it again. Now, when it comes to bring your own device, the other thing that, scares people from installing or enrolling a personal device into an MDM platform is that they're worried about the company being able to spy on them, or wipe their devices. So our solution won't allow that to happen. We do not have any control over that device. We can't see what it's doing. We can't wipe it. We saw, a very recent example where someone hacked a healthcare company in the States and didn't try to extort any money, but just sent out a global wipe to every single device that was enrolled in their MDM platform, which is horrific. Exactly. Yes. So we can't do that, and we don't want to do that. And that's what, makes it so appealing to people with personal devices. But what's in it for you as the CISO and the security person of your company is that you can make sure that even those personal devices meet your compliance posture. Yeah, they meet your rule set, and we can advise them. So, right, you're running an out-of-date version of iOS, or you've got an old version of Chrome browser, or you've got a bit of a browser extension that is insecure. We can tell them, and we can give them instructions of how to fix it. But again, we can't fix it for them in a BYOD environment because we don't have any control. But we can certainly tell them, we can guide them to fix it. They can fix the things themselves because they themselves are obviously a master of their own device. And then we can grant them access. So again, it's all about not taking away control, not invading people's privacy, but allowing users to securely access company resources. So everybody wins, basically. Security guy wins, the end user wins. It's all good.
We like an everybody wins result. We have had another great question come through. What options does it provide for remediation on a corporate device versus a personal device?
Good question. Again, another good question. So, as I said during the presentation, so we can fix things under the hood. So, I can see that the firewall's turned off. We can just fix that in the background. Alternatively, we can give the user a message saying, would you like me to fix your firewall problem? And a fix it now button. So they don't need to be, an IT wizard or anything like that. On a corporate device, we can run as the local system account. So we all have the rights to switch that stuff on, even if the user doesn't. In the next release, rather than if we find a bunch of problems with the user's computer, we can have a, would you like me to fix all of this stuff for you button? So one button fixes everything. And then, of course, we've got the grace periods as well. So we can either say, right, you've got 3 more days to fix this, or we can say, right, from the 1st of May, you need to fix this. Maybe there's a line in the sand. Maybe we're getting audited on the 2nd of May, and we need to guarantee that everybody's patched or everybody meets a certain compliance requirement by a certain date. We've got those functions as well. So there's a whole bunch of remediation options. And again, the nice thing is it doesn't stop the company from working, because that's really what you need to avoid. If it causes your business too much trouble, you end up getting a pushback, and then you end up having to wind back your rules. And that's typically what we see with current systems.
And finally, what reporting capabilities does it offer?
I didn't really dwell too much on that, did I, in the demo? Because we were a little bit pushed for time, but it does have a full reporting dashboard. So you've got full inventory of what devices are trying to access your systems via InfiniPoint. We can see what those devices are, what operating systems they're running, what version is, what software is installed, what vulnerabilities are on those operating systems, what vulnerabilities are on the applications that are installed on those computers. So you can really drill into every aspect. You can even run your own sort of custom queries and have them reporting. One of the really nice functions, though, is that it will show you all of the CVEs that exist. So, the vulnerabilities that exist on all of your operating systems. And obviously new CVEs come to light all of the time. And one of the cool views in that is that we can see, no CVEs, lots of CVEs. And then over time, as people fix them, that graph then drops down and then it goes back to 0 again. So you get this nice wave of things getting fixed over time without you having to do anything, which is the really cool thing. So yeah, you can stay on top of all of those sorts of problems.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Darren, for helping us unpack what modern workforce access protection should look like as organizations rethink zero trust, identity, and device security together. It's clear that securing access today requires a more complete view, one that considers not just who the user is, but also the trustworthiness of the device they're connecting from and the context around that access request. If your question wasn't answered during today's live session, don't worry. The Specops Software team will follow up. And if you'd like to learn more, be sure to check out the resources shared during the webinar. Darren, though, before we wrap up, I'd love to hand it back to you for any final thoughts and to share how attendees can continue the conversation and learn more.
Absolutely, Max. So, if any of this has piqued your interest today, please feel free to drop along to specopssoft.com. And you can arrange a chat with myself or one of my colleagues, and we can take you through the entire solution. So, look forward to speaking to one or all of you soon.
Thank you again, Darren. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. Definitely keep an eye on your inbox for the on-demand recording. And we hope to see you all at a future Technology Advice webinar. Thanks again, everyone.
Thanks, Max. Thanks all.